Dakota Johnson returns to the big screen and absolutely gets it right this time. Let's get into the review of the new film, Daddio. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the new film, Daddio, which will be coming to theaters June 28th. Now, this film made its world premiere at Toronto International Film Festival and making its New York premiere this year at Tribeca Film Festival. So, I love this film. And I'm going to explain everything and every reason why, but I'm starting off the break by saying I love this film. And I know how people feel about Madam Web, and we're not even going to spend any time on that. But Dakota Johnson paired with Sean Penn absolutely takes us for a ride on this film because it goes back to the roots. And especially during the pandemic where you had micro budgets and micro sets because of social distancing. And it was truly about just the actors doing what they do. And without a doubt, Dakota and Sean carries this hour and a half film with so much in-depth conversation that you could just kind of sit back and just let it burn. It's a slow burn for sure, but there's so much power within the conversation. And this film is brought to you by the director-writer Christy Hall, who makes her directorial debut. Fantastic. Cannot wait to see what you cook up next. But listen, I love this film because during the pandemic, I thought some of the best films came out because it really came back to the artistry and the talent of the filmmakers and the cast. And this is a prime example of that. It's two characters on a taxi ride from point A to point B, and they're getting to know each other. And it's this onslaught of conversations, and there's some really deep themes being touched upon here. So to kind of get into the weaves just a little bit more here, Daddio, starring Dakota Johnson, she's this young girl who gets into a taxi cab from JFK Airport to Midtown Manhattan. And I'm gonna be honest right there and say that I thought it might have been a horror film off break because you're thinking like, what's going to happen? But that did set the tone because while you were uncomfortable conversations was had. So you had Dakota Johnson's character listed as Girly, gets into a taxi cab, and the taxi cab is by the name of Clark, played by Sean Penn. Right there, I'm just going to be honest. Listen, that's my biggest fear because sometimes I just like to get my Uber, my taxi cab, and I don't want to hear anything. And this man is talking her head off, but because he realizes and notices that she's not attached to her cell phone. So I guess the first thing he thinks is, this is not a millennial. This is actually somebody that I can actually have a legitimate and intelligent conversations with, which I love. We're getting back to the roots here. We're not just always facing our phone and not acknowledging our surroundings. So I did appreciate that. And that's where the film really begins, because you are going to explore, and they explore so many different themes here. From comedic moments to like deep and spicy moments. Some moments are just completely tense and deeply heartfelt. And I'll be honest and say, Clark gets this kind of going off break. He starts to psychoanalyze, if you ask me, Girly, by really dictating, her whole life. And some things he's right about, some things he's not. But listen, the banter between the two of them, not just the actors, but the characters work, because while he's coming more direct, she's a little bit nonchalant, but she's also kind of talking around the bush. But at some point they get on the same playing field, and it is really, they both just open up a can of worms. I'm using a lot of metaphors here because at one point it is about Clark and him getting to know her because he's so excited he has somebody he could talk to, but it eventually gets her getting him to open up about who he is and, his life and everything he got going on. So I tell you, it gets deep, especially with Girly, because the themes behind this character and sort of the background with this character, it's interesting. Like, they addressed her relationship with her mother, her relationship with her sister, and her absent, or should I say distant father, absent mother, abusive sister, distant father, hence the title Daddio, which you already imagine was going to be a component to the development of one of the characters of sorts, right? But also at a point, while she did resist being on her phone after a while, she then decides to sort of draw her attention to her phone. And we're introduced to this guy. I don't know what other way to put it, but this is a creepy guy that is just, to be 100% transparent here, a horny guy, can't wait to hook up with her, to no regard about anything else but his needs here. It's a the character is on par. I hear these stories all the time, and this guy is absolutely laying it on her in these text messages, asking for sexy pictures, wanting to know when she's going to get there so he could do so. But at the same time, Clark, he knows the things or two. So he knows, and he's dissecting the relationship between her and this guy, and that becomes a whole other element to it. So, on one end you could say, like, did she have daddy issues, or was she just somebody who just didn't have the proper guidance from any male figure in the first place? And that's where things start to really, really get into gear in terms of like the development of the story. Like, you're going through these different phases of this conversation, but ultimately, as I said, at some point it becomes less about Girly and then it becomes about Clark, and the two of them in this car ride are just getting to know each other. So, like, I love that you're getting back to the basics of conversation in terms of humanity, but also too, there's a big theme of empathy involved, and also just human on human conversation. Like, I know these are like things that happen on podcasts, but back in the day, people had these conversations at barbershops, at parks, or in car rides, aka taxis, whatever it may be. Now everybody's just glued to social media, and we got away from these things. So, like, I do love the emphasis on that. In fact, this film actually feels like a play. And I know I've been like very pro pandemic film, and that's definitely not a discredit if you know. Like, it's just, again, as I mentioned, it is about the actors doing what they do best, small set, micro budget, and they're making their money by showing their talent. And also, folks were stepping into roles that they normally wouldn't take. Because of the pandemic, but also because it's an independent film and they get to really express like their creativity, their artistry. But Dakota, whatever you want to think about Matter Wave, she can act, and Sean comes in, and the two of them, they make this hour-and-a-half ride every bit of the watch. Just so much in-depth conversation and just really important nuance within the script. Like, the film lacks nothing, if you ask me, in terms of just being able to tell a story and letting actors do. And yeah, it absolutely feels like a play. It's built like a play. It feels like a play, but here we are getting it on our theatrical screens, and I ain't mad at that one bit. And you can check this out, whether it's Tribeca, whether you checked it out at TIFF, or you wait until it comes in the theaters June 28th. Daddio is a film you want to put on your watch list. Listen, there's no action in here. The drama is all within the dialogue, the power of the acting, the ups and downs of everything that the conversation is going to explore. It gets deep, it gets heavy, it gets spicy, it gets uncomfortable at times, but that's what we need. We need to have these uncomfortable conversations. And nonetheless, man, just fantastic acting. But yeah, jump in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about this one once you check it out. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews very soon.